The way I remember him is just he's kind of unwaitable in my life. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard for me to walk down the street and not see a new monitor in every single from the net, so he's around me every day of my life. At just 17 years old, Frances Bean Cobain had already lived through more trauma than most people could endure in a lifetime. She wasn't just the daughter of two famous rock stars. She was the child of a tortured legend, Kurt Cobain, who died by suicide when she was only a baby and a mother, Courtney Love, whose addiction struggles played out in the public eye. But what truly shocks about Frances's story is how, despite the devastating circumstances she was born into, she was forced to fight her own demons, battling addiction, navigating a fractured relationship with her mother, and coping with her own sense of identity, all while under the relentless gaze of the media. Keep calm to listen to the tragic story of Frances Bean Cobain. Frances Bean Cobain's life was marked by controversy even before she was born. As the daughter of rock legends Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love, she was immediately entangled in the tumultuous lifestyle of her parents, with concerns about her well-being surfacing long before her birth. The drama began in 1992, when Love, then pregnant, gave a shocking interview to Vanity Fair, in which she admitted to using heroin. Her confession fueled widespread fears about the health of her unborn child and raised questions about her ability to be a responsible mother. In the interview, Love recalled an incident where she and Cobain used heroin together, stating, "We copped some dope, then we got high and went to SNL. After that, I did heroin for a couple of months." The statement caused an uproar, prompting public concern over whether Frances would suffer from drug-related health issues. Both Love and Cobain were quick to push back against these allegations, denying any prolonged drug use after discovering the pregnancy. In a statement published by E!, they insisted that Love had sought medical guidance immediately. As soon as Courtney found out she was pregnant, she immediately contacted an obstetrician and a doctor specializing in chemical dependency, and has been assured that she can expect to have a healthy baby. Despite their assurances, the damage to their reputation had already been done. The controversy surrounding Love's drug use, combined with the couple's known struggles with addiction, led to intervention by Child Protective Services. Just weeks after Frances was born, she was taken from her parents' custody and placed under the care of authorities, a shocking development that underscored the concerns many had about the couple's ability to provide a stable home. Years later, Love finally acknowledged in a 2011 interview with The Fix that she had in fact used heroin during the first few weeks of her pregnancy. "It's true. I used heroin in the first 3 weeks of my pregnancy. But so fucking what?" she said, expressing frustration over the scrutiny she faced. Love also admitted to smoking a few cigarettes, but maintained that she had been pressured to terminate the pregnancy because of her drug use. Defiantly, she added, "I wasn't about to lose my baby." Frances Bean Cobain has endured the effects of her parents' struggles with drug addiction for nearly her entire life. Born into rock royalty as the daughter of Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain and Hole singer Courtney Love, Frances's early years were overshadowed by the substance abuse issues that plagued both of her parents. Her mother, Courtney Love, openly admitted in an interview with The Fix that even during her pregnancy, her husband Kurt was heavily using heroin. His addiction continued up until his tragic death in 1994, leaving Frances with only fleeting memories of her father. According to The Independent, The last time she saw him alive was during a visit to a rehab center, a poignant and painful moment that would become a defining part of her early life. While her father's battle with addiction ended with his passing, her mother's struggles continued for years, deeply impacting Frances's upbringing. In a 2009 court testimony, as reported by the Daily Mail, Frances revealed that Love had been using drugs for as long as I can remember. She went on to say that her mother basically exists now on Xanax, Adderall, Sonata, and Abilify, highlighting a pattern of dependence on prescription medications. Love's substance abuse was not just an allegation from her daughter. Her drug-related arrests and multiple stints in rehab further confirmed the instability that defined much of Frances' childhood. From 2001 to 2004, a particularly turbulent period in Love's life, she later admitted, via ABC News, that her drug use had taken such a toll that nothing she wrote made sense. This time frame coincided with Frances' preteen years, a critical developmental period in which she often found herself playing the caretaker rather than being cared for. The burden of growing up in such a chaotic environment took a significant emotional toll on Frances, leading her to develop feelings of anger, resentment, and frustration. In a candid 2019 interview on RuPaul, What's the Tea podcast, Frances opened up about the deep-seated emotions she carried for years. I was so fucking bitter and angry and upset and resentful for a really long time, she admitted, reflecting on the complicated relationship she had with her mother. However, she also acknowledged that she appreciates Love when she is in a healthy state, saying, "I do like my mom when she is on a right and healthy path." Despite this, Frances has also come to terms with the reality that her feelings or opinions are unlikely to change. Love's decisions regarding her substance use. I also don't expect that my opinions are going to deter her decisions, she stated, signaling an acceptance of the limitations of their relationship. Frances Bean Cobain faced an unimaginable tragedy before she was even 2 years old when her father, legendary Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain, died by suicide in April 1994. Growing up in the shadow of her father's immense legacy, Frances had to navigate the weight of his fame and the grief of losing a parent she never truly got to know. In an interview on the RuPaul What the Tea podcast, Frances shared how she learned about her father's death. She revealed, "I wasn't told my dad committed suicide until the age of 5, explaining that her mother, Courtney Love, took a thoughtful approach to breaking the news. Love preemptively enrolled Frances in therapy a year before telling her, allowing her to be gradually eased into such a heartbreaking reality. Despite this preparation, comprehending the loss of her father at such a young age was undoubtedly difficult. Because Frances was an infant when Kurt passed away, her understanding of him was shaped largely by the public narrative surrounding his life and death. In a candid interview with Rolling Stone, she admitted that she initially thought of him as this guy who's like Santa Claus, an almost mythical figure rather than a real person. Over time, as she learned more about him and his struggles, she formed a more complex perspective on his life and choices. Frances has spoken openly about the toll her father's fame and artistic dedication took on him. She acknowledged that his passion for music and the immense pressures of fame played a significant role in his mental health struggles. Kurt got to the point where he eventually had to sacrifice every bit of who he was to his art, she explained. I think that was one of the main triggers as to why he felt he didn't want to be here. She expressed sadness over the fact that, had he lived, she could have had a father figure in her life, something she deeply longs for. If he had lived, I would have had a dad. and that would have been an incredible experience, she reflected. Frances has also been vocal about the dangers of romanticizing the tragic deaths of musicians. She has criticized the way society places such figures on a pedestal, arguing that it distorts the reality of their suffering. We love to put them on a pedestal. If Kurt had just been another guy who abandoned his family in the most awful way possible, she remarked, highlighting the painful reality behind the glamorized narrative. Despite never having the chance to know him personally, Frances has honored her father's memory in her own way. In a now-deleted Instagram birthday tribute to him, she wrote, "You are loved and you are missed." She has also used her platform to advocate for mental health awareness and suicide prevention. Posting resources for those struggling, she reminded her followers, needing help is not weakness. Frances Bean Cobain's childhood was marked by significant instability, largely due to her mother, Courtney Love's well-documented struggles with substance abuse. This instability resulted in multiple separations from her mother, a cycle that began just weeks after her birth. As MTV reported, Child Protective Services removed Cobain from her parents' care early on, a distressing event that would set the tone for much of her youth. Love's ongoing drug use made it difficult for her to provide a stable home environment, which led to repeated interventions by authorities. One of the most traumatic incidents occurred in 2003, when Cobain, then just 11 years old, witnessed her mother's drug overdose and subsequent arrest. Following this, Love's lost custody of Cobain once again. While such separations were undoubtedly painful, they also provided Cobain with a more stable environment, primarily under the care of her paternal grandmother, Wendy O'Connor, and her aunt, Kimberly Cobain. These family members became the bedrock of Cobain's life, offering her a consistency that her mother's tumultuous lifestyle could not. By 2005, after completing a stint in rehab, Loves sought to regain custody of her daughter, expressing her commitment to becoming a responsible parent. At the time, Loves told the press, "My kid is my first priority," and described reuniting with her daughter as exciting. However, her resolve was short-lived. Within months of regaining custody, Loves violated her probation, an event that further reinforced the unpredictability in Cobain's life. As Cobain entered her teenage years, she began to take more control over her circumstances. By the age of 17, she made the life-altering decision to permanently live with her grandmother, leading Loves to lose custody of her daughter for the third and final time. Love's attorney attempted to downplay the situation, asserting to People magazine that Cobain's choice was not a result of her mother's relapse, but rather an independent decision made by a strong-willed teenager. However, Cobain herself had previously voiced her struggles with the instability of her upbringing. In a 2007 interview with Harper's Bazaar, she reflected on her childhood, stating, "We've moved so much, and my life has been so inconsistent." Despite the chaos, she acknowledged her grandmother's unwavering presence in her life, calling her the most constant thing I've ever had. This statement underscored just how much Cobain longed for stability, a need she ultimately found outside of her mother's care. One of the most significant turning points in their tumultuous relationship occurred in 2009, when, at the age of 17, Cobain chose to leave Love's custody and live with her paternal grandmother, Wendy O'Connor. Rather than respecting her daughter's decision, Loves reacted in an explosive and very public manner. Taking to Facebook, she unleashed an incoherent and scathing rant, lashing out at Cobain and her family. According to the Daily News, Loves accused her daughter of being deceptive and claimed that she was lying to herself. She also alleged that Cobain was surrounded by harmful influences, implying that those around her were manipulating her decision to leave. Unfortunately, this incident was far from an isolated outburst. Around the same time, tensions between mother and daughter escalated, to the point where Cobain sought legal protection against Loves. As the Daily Mail reported, Cobain obtained a restraining order against her mother after a fight between the two turned physical. In court testimony, Cobain made shocking allegations, including claims that Loves was still abusing drugs and that her substance-fueled negligence had even led to the accidental deaths of Cobain's pets. She also testified that Loves had threatened not only Cobain's ex-boyfriend, but also herself, reinforcing the volatile nature of their relationship. Cobain went on to describe her mother's paranoia, stating, "My mother is obsessed with uncovering fraud." These revelations painted a distressing picture of a teenager forced to navigate both personal and public turmoil, at an age when stability and security were crucial. Despite the already fractured state of their relationship, Loves continued to drag her daughter into controversy in the years that followed. One of the most infamous incidents occurred in 2012, when Loves turned her attention toward Dave Grohl, former Nirvana drummer and longtime family friend. Without any apparent basis, Loves took to Twitter and accused Grohl of behaving inappropriately toward Cobain. She wrote, via page 6, "I hear from Franny's roommate that Dave Grohl hit on Frances. I'm not mad at her. Him, I am about to shoot dead." The tweet was met with immediate backlash, and it appeared that even Cobain had reached her breaking point. She quickly issued a rare public statement, forcefully denying her mother's claims. "Her recent tirade has taken a gross turn," Cobain stated. "I have never been approached by Dave Grohl in more than a platonic way." Cobain's frustration with her mother's public outbursts was evident, and she even went as far as to say, "Twitter should ban my mother." Her words reflected not just her exasperation, but her desire to distance herself from the chaos Love repeatedly created. By this point, Cobain had spent years trying to establish a life separate from her mother's erratic behavior, but Love's insistence on making their issues public only made that process more difficult. Frances Bean. Cobain appeared to be seeking stability and love when she married musician Isaiah Silva in 2014, after dating for 5 years. However, what seemed like a hopeful new chapter quickly unraveled into a tumultuous and bitter ordeal. Even from the beginning, there was drama surrounding the marriage as Cobain and Silva chose to wed in secret, excluding even her own mother, Courtney Love, from the ceremony. An unnamed source reportedly told E! That Love was devastated to learn that Frances had gotten married without her knowing. While the decision to keep the wedding private may have strained her already fragile relationship with Love, it ultimately proved insignificant in the grand scheme of things, as the marriage itself was short-lived. By 2016, just 2 years after tying the knot, Cobain and Silva separated, and what followed was an acrimonious and highly publicized divorce. Reflecting on her marriage in a 2019 episode of RuPaul, What's the Tea podcast, Cobain admitted that she may have married for the wrong reasons. She explained, "The idea of marriage, of securing a family very early on, was the complete opposite of what my mom did," acknowledging that she was searching for some form of stability. Coming from an upbringing filled with uncertainty and instability, it's understandable why Cobain would be drawn to the idea of a traditional and secure family life. However, she realized that her approach was rooted more in a reaction to her childhood rather than a true foundation for a lasting relationship. Unfortunately, her split from Silva was anything but smooth. The divorce turned ugly when Silva laid claim to one of Cobain's most treasured possessions, her late father, Kurt Cobain's legendary Martin D18E acoustic guitar, which he famously played during MTV Unplugged in New York. The instrument, which held immense sentimental value for Cobain, was also reported to be worth millions. Silva argued that Cobain had given it to him as a wedding gift, while she firmly denied ever doing so. The battle over the guitar escalated into an intense legal dispute, and matters took an even more bizarre turn when Silva later accused Love, along with several of her associates, of conspiring to kill him in an attempt to reclaim the instrument. According to page 6, Silva filed a lawsuit alleging that he was the target of an elaborate scheme involving kidnapping, threats, and intimidation. His claims, however, were met with skepticism, and he was eventually ordered by the court to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. By 2020, the infamous guitar, which had become a central point of contention in their divorce, was reportedly put up for auction, much to the dismay of Nirvana fans and Cobain alike. The situation surrounding the guitar not only added to the emotional toll of her divorce, but also highlighted the challenges she faced in preserving her father's legacy, while navigating her own personal struggles. In the end, Cobain's marriage to Silva became yet another chapter in her life, defined by turmoil and loss. While she initially saw marriage as a path to stability, she later recognized that true security had to come from within. By moving past this difficult period, Cobain demonstrated her resilience in forging her own identity, one separate from both the chaos of her past and the legacy of her famous parents. One of the undeniable perks of having rock star parents is financial security. But Frances Bean Cobain doesn't necessarily see her inherited wealth as a blessing. In fact, she has described her complicated relationship with money in ways that reveal both a sense of guilt and a struggle with financial responsibility. During an episode of RuPaul, What's the Tea podcast, Cobain reflected on her wealth, stating, "My relationship to money is different because I didn't earn it," and even likening it to this big, giant loan that I'll never get rid of. While many might envy her financial position, she views it as something that carries emotional weight rather than just privilege. Having lost her father, Kurt Cobain, when she was only a baby, Frances has expressed a disconnect from the fortune he left behind. "I have an almost foreign relationship to it, or guilt, because it feels like money from somebody that I've never met, let alone haven't earned myself." This statement sheds light on the complex emotions tied to her inheritance. While it provides security, it also serves as a constant reminder of a father she never had the chance to know. According to People, Cobain's net worth is estimated to be around $11.3 million, with an additional $95,000 per month coming from her late father's estate. While this wealth ensures that she will never have to worry about financial stability, Cobain has been open about how it took her years to understand how to manage it. She admitted that for a long time she was reckless with her spending habits. "The one way that I was shown how to live was to live in excess, like live beyond your means," she shared, indicating that her exposure to the rock and roll lifestyle led her to believe that extravagant spending was normal. Spending was normal, however. As she matured, Cobain began to realize that wealth was not an endless resource, and, more importantly, that it did not bring her the happiness or fulfillment she was searching for. It took me stepping away from that and getting sober in order to realize that no matter how much money you think you have, it's not permanent, she admitted. This realization led her to take real accountability for her financial future, and she began making more conscious decisions about her spending instead of chasing a lavish lifestyle. Cobain learned the value of financial responsibility, concluding, "You don't have to live lavishly to live well." Frances Bean Cobain grew up watching her mother, Courtney Love, battle drug addiction in the most public way possible. Love's struggles were often displayed for the world to see, and Cobain, being the daughter of a rock star, was well aware of the destructive path her mother was on. However, Cobain came to realize that she too had developed a problem with substances. But unlike her mother, Cobain managed to keep her addiction a secret. During an appearance on RuPaul, What's the Tea podcast, Cobain opened up about the nature of her addiction, describing herself as the type that nobody knew I was a drug addict. She contrasted herself with her mother, saying, "Courtney is a very loud drug addict, likes to expose herself in that way," indicating that while Love's struggles were out in the open, Cobain's issues were far more private. She spent a lot of time alone, grappling with her addiction in the confines of her own home, and kept it hidden from the public eye. Despite her secrecy, Cobain's grandmother, Wendy O'Connor, noticed that she was becoming self-destructive. However, instead of stepping in and trying to control the situation, O'Connor believed Cobain needed to work through it on her own. O'Connor shared her perspective in an interview with The Independent, saying, "It was very hard not to over-insert myself. I had to step back and kind of let it run its course." Cobain later expressed gratitude for her grandmother's approach, acknowledging that it allowed her to find her own path to healing. "I'm really appreciative that she allowed me to heal myself first," Cobain said, recognizing that her grandmother's support came in the form of trust and space rather than intervention. Cobain's journey to sobriety was not an easy one, but she found a way to take control of her life and break free from the destructive cycle. She revealed that she sought help through sober companions, people who helped keep her accountable as she worked to overcome her addiction. She also learned to channel her fanatical, addictive personality and tendencies into really healthy things, finding new outlets to focus her energy on and build a life of stability and purpose. By 2018, Cobain celebrated a significant milestone in her recovery, sharing with her Instagram followers that she had been sober for 2 years. In a now-deleted post, she reflected on her journey, saying, "Self-destruction and toxic consumption and deliverance from pain is a lot easier to adhere to. Undeniably, for myself and those around me, becoming present is the best decision I have ever made." Cobain expressed that she made her sobriety public in the hopes of helping others who may be struggling with similar issues, offering a message of hope and encouragement. In 2017, Frances Bean Cobain experienced a life-changing event that brought her face-to-face with her own mortality. After everything she had already endured, from growing up with a tumultuous family life to battling addiction, this near-death experience shook her to her core and profoundly impacted how she viewed the world. According to the Daily Mail, the incident took place during a flight aboard an Air France plane, which had to make an emergency landing after suffering severe engine damage. Cobain had changed her flight at the last minute, opting to take an earlier Air France flight home from Paris Fashion Week. She later described the terrifying moment when she first realized the severity of the situation. In a now-deleted Instagram post, Cobain recalled feeling the plane tilt and then seeing the wing directly in front of her catch fire. At that moment, she came to terms with the reality of what was happening. "I basically came to grips with my own mortality," she shared. The experience was a stark reminder of the fragility of life, especially for someone who had already faced so much personal turmoil. As a result of the flight's emergency, Cobain's anxiety, which had been an ongoing struggle for her, took on a new dimension. She reflected on how the event had altered her perspective on life, particularly on how she had previously allowed mundane, crippling anxieties to control her. "All the mundane, crippling anxieties I once let dictate how I functioned have dissipated," she wrote. It was clear that this traumatic experience had catalyzed a shift in her mindset. The near-death incident forced her to confront her fears and reassess the way she had been living, offering her a deeper sense of clarity and focus. In addition to confronting her own anxieties, Cobain revealed that the event also brought her closer to the people she cared about. She specifically mentioned her mother, Courtney Love, as someone she worried about never seeing again. This reflection highlighted the emotional healing that had occurred between them. Cobain's relationship with Love had been rocky for years, but this incident seemed to symbolize a turning point in their connection, one marked by vulnerability and a newfound appreciation for each other. By August 2021, it appeared that their relationship remained in a healthier place, with Cobain's worries about losing her mother showing how their bond had evolved. As for the flight, Air France later confirmed to CNN that there had indeed been serious damage to one of its 4 engines. However, the airline also reassured the public that the pilots and cabin crew had handled the crisis with the utmost professionalism, ensuring the safety of all passengers. Despite the relief that came with the successful emergency landing, Cobain's perspective had already been irrevocably altered. She acknowledged that the incident had propelled her into the phase of my life where every moment is truly precious. For someone like Cobain, who had faced numerous personal challenges and traumas, this experience provided her with a profound takeaway: the value of life itself. Instead of succumbing to fear or anxiety, she emerged with a renewed sense of appreciation for the fleeting nature of existence. What do you think about the tragedies that happened to Frances being Cobain? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this, and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.